The arrow is already knocked before you decide to knock it. Downriver, in the dark, men wearing the same ostrich feather you wear are closing the distance, and for the better part of an hour, nobody on either side has spoken. Your bowstring holds at half draw. You do not release it, but that is 41 years from tonight. Right now, you are 9 years old, and the only thing you have ever aimed at is a wet lump of Nile mud your father nailed to a fence post. Your village sits where the river narrows south of the first cataract, in the land the Egyptians call Wawat. The mud brick under your bare feet is still cool from the night. Your father kneels behind you, one hand steadying your elbow, the other correcting the angle of the bow. A self-bow, not the layered wooden horn kind the Egyptian officers carry, but strong enough to put an arrow through a man's ribs at 30 paces, and everyone in the household already knows that this is exactly what it is for. He works a single ostrich feather into the crown of your hair, the way his father did for him. It is not decoration. In 3 generations, every man in your line has worn this feather into a war he did not start, for a king he has never met, and none of them has ever explained why that feels like both an honor and a debt. On the road above the riverbank, a supply column passes toward the gold country to the south. Egyptian scribes on donkeys, counting baskets, guarded by a dozen men who look almost exactly like your father. He straightens up, watches them go, and says the thing he will say to you 100 more times before you understand it is not simple at all. We keep Pharaoh's borders. That is what our people do now. You believe him completely. You have no reason yet not to. In the flood season after you turn 14, a recruitment column comes up the road from Aswan, and this time, it does not pass your village. It stops. The fletching burns your fingers before it ever burns anyone else's. You have refeathered the same 3 arrows so many times this season that your father stopped correcting your grip weeks ago and started correcting your breathing instead. The arrowheads are flint, chipped by your uncle's own hand, not the bronze points the Egyptian quartermasters hand out downriver. Your family has never needed bronze to hit what it aims at, and your father says this the way other men say a prayer. Your world has 2 shapes to it, and by 10 years old, you can already tell which one you are standing inside at any given moment. There is the shape of the village, goats, millet bread, your mother's voice calling across the courtyard, the river low and green in the dry months. And there is the other shape, the one that arrives twice a year on donkeys, scribes with sealed papyrus, soldiers counting grain, a viceroy's officer who once stopped at your well and called your father Medjay, as if it were his whole name and not just his work. That word used to mean something narrower. Your grandfather told you so before he died, that once Medjay meant a particular people from a particular stretch of desert east of the river, and now half the men wearing the title in the forts up north have never set foot east of anywhere. The word has become a job. You are still, for now, the thing it used to mean. At night, your father tells you about a man named Myherpri, Nubian-born, raised close enough to a king's household that when he died young, they buried him among pharaohs in a valley reserved for them, gave him a fan-bearer's title, and a place no other commoner has ever earned there. Your father tells it like a promise. You will learn, much later, that it is also a warning, though neither of you can hear the difference yet. We keep Pharaoh's borders, he says again, the way he always does. That is what our people do now. You nod. You do not yet know that now is doing more work in that sentence than any other word in it. In the flood season after you turn 14, a recruitment column comes up the road from Aswan, and this time it does not pass your village, it stops. They shave your head the first morning, and it is the cold on your scalp, not the shouting, not the drills, that tells you this life belongs to someone else now. The training ground outside Aswan smells of trampled dust and other men's sweat. You wrestle before you eat. You carry sandbags before you wrestle. In the afternoons, the drill master runs you through knife work and stick fighting until your forearms shake. And in the evenings, if a man's form is sloppy, his own tent mates are the ones ordered to beat it out of him. Not the officers, never the officers, because a lesson delivered by a friend's hand cuts differently, and everyone here knows it. You learn the shape of the army the way you once learned the shape of the village. In units, 50 men to a platoon, 250 to a company, under a man who carries the standard, so the ones behind him always know where to run. 20 companies to a division, and every division carries a god's name. Amun, Re, Ptah, Set, though nobody has explained to you yet which god, if any, is carrying yours. A veteran named Senu, missing 2 fingers on his bow hand, tells you plainly one night what your father never quite said outright. An Egyptian recruit who wants out badly enough can break his own thumb and walk home a farmer. Nobody will do the same for you. You were never that kind of expendable in the first place, which he says like it should sound like a compliment, and for one confused night, it almost does. You are expected to march 32 kilometers between sunrise and dark, fully loaded, and the first time you manage it without falling behind, nobody claps you on the back. Someone simply hands you a real quiver, filled with real arrows, and tells you where to report at dawn. The Gold Road South is short-handed an escort. Yours is the unit sent to fill it. The desert east of the Nile does not sound like anything at first, and that is exactly what makes you nervous by the 3rd day out. Your unit walks beside a line of donkeys loaded with sealed baskets, gold dust and raw emerald from the mines that make Kush worth an empire's trouble, headed north to a treasury you will never see the inside of. You have grown up hearing this stretch of desert called your people's country. Out here, guarding what leaves it, that claim starts to feel like something borrowed back to you at a price. On the 4th night, raiders hit the rear of the column. How many? You never get a clear count, because clarity is not what a night ambush gives you. What it gives you is noise, and then a shape moving wrong in the dark, and then your own arrow already gone from the string before you have finished deciding to loose it. When the sun comes up, the man you killed is younger than you expected, and the friend standing next to you, a boy from 2 villages over who trained beside you at Aswan, is not standing anymore. Nobody in your unit says his name again after that morning. This is not cruelty. It is simply how men your age have learned to survive grief on a schedule that does not pause for it. You finish the escort. The gold reaches its treasury. Somewhere in a scribe's ledger, your company's work that season is recorded as a single satisfactory line. 3 seasons later, new orders arrive, and they surprise you. Not another desert route, but a posting near Thebes itself. Permanent duty, guarding ground that does not move. Your captain tells you it is a promotion. Standing at the edge of the Valley of the Kings for the first time, staring at cliffs holding more dead pharaohs than you can count on both hands, you are not entirely sure promotion is the word for it. Your son's grip on the bow is wrong, and for a moment you say nothing at all, because it is exactly the grip you had at his age, and you are 20 years deep into a life you did not expect to still be standing inside. 9 years at the western edge of Thebes has taught you a rhythm. By day, you and the dogs your unit trains walk the low paths below the cliffs, reading footprints that do not belong, listening for anything scraping at sealed stone. By evening, you go home to a wife who is not from Nubia at all, but from a farming village 2 days south of here, and to a boy who has never once seen the desert you grew up in, and who thinks of your homeland the way you once thought of Egypt, as a place other people's fathers came from. You tell him about Myher Pri again, the way your own father told you, a Nubian boy, raised close to a king, buried among pharaohs. Your son likes the story. You are starting to notice, the older he gets, that you like it a little less each time. Not because it stopped being true, but because you have spent 2 decades learning how rare it actually is. Word has been moving through the necropolis workers' huts for weeks now, low and careful, about missing grave goods from an old tomb west of here. Nobody official has said anything yet. But your unit's dogs have been sent out twice this month on searches that were never explained to you, and the men who give the orders have started avoiding your eyes when you ask why. Whatever this is, it is bigger than a single opened coffin. You can feel it the way you once felt a storm building over the cataracts, before the wind, before the smell of it. Just a pressure against the skin that tells you something is coming. The confession comes out of a man named Amin Tamufer, in the way confessions come out of anyone questioned with a rod in hand. Slowly, then all at once, then more than anyone asked for. You are not the one holding the rod. You are one of a dozen Medjay standing along the wall of the questioning chamber, while the quarryman describes, in flat, exhausted detail, exactly how he and 7 others broke into the sealed tomb of a king dead 500 years, pried the coffin, stripped the gold, split what they found between them like men dividing a catch of fish. 10 tombs get checked that season. Only one is found untouched. The mayor of eastern Thebes, a man named Pazer, is the one who brought the accusation north in the first place, pointing a finger squarely at his counterpart across the river, Pawera, the mayor responsible for the entire western necropolis you have spent 9 years patrolling. The vizier Kamwaset orders a commission to investigate. What nobody tells you until the commission is already seated is that Pawera himself has been placed at the head of it. You watch 17 workmen from the tomb builder's village go to their deaths that season. You watch Pawera walk out of the hearing room exactly as free as he walked in. Later, alone at the edge of the valley you have guarded half your adult life, you turn the whole thing over and cannot make it sit flat. You have spent 30 years being told this ground is sacred, that your work here matters more than gold, more than comfort, more than your own name. And you have just watched a man with enough rank simply step around every consequence you would have died for. If this story has taught you anything worth keeping, so far, it is this. Justice here was never blind to color. It was blind to power, and only ever in one direction. You mentioned none of this to your son that night, but a new name has started moving through the reports crossing your commander's desk. A viceroy from the south, recently appointed, already asking harder questions than the last one ever did. Panahesi, for the first time in your life, the man signing the orders that reach your commander's desk has your own color of skin, and you do not know, at first, what to do with the way that makes your chest feel. Panahesi has been viceroy of Kush for less than a year, and already the tomb robbery inquiries have sharper teeth than they did under his predecessor. New questioning, new commissions. Fewer names quietly let go the way Pawera was let go a decade before. You are called to stand duty at 2 of the hearings yourself. You watch him work, patient with witnesses, merciless with contradictions, careful to write down exactly what a man says before he has the chance to unsay it. Word in the barracks is that he started as you did, desert-born, Nubian, risen through exactly the kind of unglamorous, dog and footprint work you have spent your whole career doing. Nobody has to explain to you why that detail spreads through every Medjay post between here and Aswan within a season. For the first time since the day your father worked a feather into your hair and told you what your people did now feels like it might mean something you actually chose. One evening, escorting him between the valley and the river, you hear Panahesi say a line to one of his officers that you turn over for weeks afterward, something about protecting what belongs to us, spoken plainly, without a single glance toward Thebes to check whether the word needed permission from anyone there. You do not ask him what he meant by it. You are 41 years old, and you have learned, by now, that some questions are safer left exactly as unanswered as they arrived. What you do notice, in the months after, is smaller and harder to name. The high priest of Amun's messengers stopped greeting Panahesi's men in the temple forecourts the way they used to. Something between the 2 offices has started to cool that has nothing to do with tombs at all. By the following flood season, word reaches the barracks that Panahesi's forces are marching north. Not on an inquiry this time, but on orders to hold Thebes itself. Thebes does not look different when your unit marches into it. That is the first thing that unsettles you. The temples stand exactly where they stood. The market still smells of grilled fish and river mud. And yet something in how people move out of your way now has changed completely. Ta calls it restoring order. There has been unrest, strikes among the tomb workers, thefts, a high priest's authority slipping in ways nobody official will name out loud. And the only garrison large enough to answer it sits under his command, in Nubia, so north you come. Your unit is posted along the temple forecourts you used to walk unarmed, as an off-duty man buying bread. You walk them now with a spear in hand, and the bread sellers do not meet your eyes anymore. One afternoon you recognize a face from years back. A scribe's assistant who once sat 2 benches down from you at a Mempnufer's questioning, back when you were both simply men doing unpleasant, necessary work for the same office. He sees you. He does not nod. He crosses to the far side of the street and keeps walking. And it is that. Not a shout, not a stone thrown, just a man choosing the far pavement that lands harder than anything a stranger could have said to you. He does say something, eventually, weeks later, when you cross paths again near the granary district Panahesi has by then placed under his own seal. Just one question, low enough that only you hear it. Who exactly are your men protecting anymore? You do not have an answer that survives being said out loud. If anyone watching this has ever had a friend go quiet on you before they ever explained why, put it in the comments, because that particular kind of silence is its own language, and you already know exactly what it does to a person long before you ever find the words for it. By the time word arrives that Ramesses XI himself, far to the north, has grown wary of how much of Upper Egypt now answers to a single viceroy's granary seal, you have stopped being surprised by any of it. You have simply started waiting to find out which direction the next order will send you. Your sandals are already half-laced for a march south, before anyone official says the word withdraw out loud. That is how orders like this actually arrive, in the small physical readiness of men around you, long before anyone puts language to it. Piank comes first, high priest and viceroy both, the titles stacked onto one man now the way Panahesi once stacked his own. And behind him marches Herihor, a soldier risen through the ranks the same rough way you and Panahesi both did, commanding troops that look, from where you stand on the temple walls, unsettlingly like your own. Ostrich feathers on both sides, flint and bronze mixed in both quivers. You have spent 3 years being told which one of these armies is the lawful one, and standing here now, you honestly could not tell the two apart by sight alone. The fighting that follows is not the kind anyone will carve into a temple wall. There is no single battle you can point to and say, there, that is where it turned. Only weeks of pressure, skirmishes at the edges of the city, granaries changing hands, and finally the order every man in Panahesi's garrison has been dreading, without saying so out loud. Fall back. Give up the city. Go south. You are part of the rear guard covering that withdrawal, and it is on the riverbank, at night, that the men following Piank's banners finally close the gap between the two forces to less than a bow shot. This is the moment. You already know it is the moment, because you have been living inside it, in fragments, since before this story ever told you your own age. Someone on your side gives the order to hold position, arrows nocked, nothing loosed yet, a warning line drawn in the dark rather than a charge. Across the gap, the other line does exactly the same. For what feels like the length of an entire life, both sides simply stand there, weapons raised, breath held, waiting to find out whether tonight is the night Nubian men finally spend their arrows on each other over a throne 800 miles away that neither side has ever laid eyes on. Your string holds at half draw. You do not release it. Somewhere down the line, an order passes. Quiet, almost embarrassed, to withdraw instead. Nobody on either side ever fires a single shot that night. You will spend the rest of your life uncertain whether that silence was mercy, exhaustion, or the last shred of something neither army had a name for anymore. Your grandson's grip is wrong, and this time you correct it before you even think to stop yourself. You are back in Wawat now, close enough to the first cataract that some mornings you can hear the water the way you did as a boy, though your knees no longer let you kneel on the mud brick the way your own father once knelt behind you. Panahesi still holds this stretch of the river, not as Pharaoh's viceroy anymore, not really, though nobody in Nubia bothers correcting the old title out loud. He governs. Nubia answers to him, and, through him, to no one visibly north of the second cataract. Word reaches you, secondhand and unhurried the way news from Thebes always arrives down here now, that Ramesses XI has died. You feel less about it than you expect to. A man you served under, once, at 300 kilometers distance, his death changes almost nothing in the shape of your actual days. 2 more flood seasons pass before word comes that Panahesi himself has died. Quietly, still in his own country, still holding his own title, buried at Aniba rather than dragged back north in chains or disgrace. Nobody ever called him a traitor to his face, not even at the very end. You turned that over for a long time. It is not a small thing, in a life spent watching men with far less power escape far worse consequences than the ones who actually deserved them. If a name like Panahesi's was new to you before tonight, subscribe. The New Kingdom's last decades are full of people just like him, and this channel keeps digging them back up. Your grandson asks you, one evening, whose army he will join when he is old enough, expecting, you think, a pharaoh's name, the way children always expect a single simple answer. For the first time in your entire life, you do not have to reach for one. There is no distant king's name to give him. There is only this river, this stretch of land the old Egyptian scribes once called the land of the bow, long before any of them ever set foot here. A name that was never really theirs to give in the first place, and that has, somehow, outlasted every one of theirs. You finish adjusting his fingers on the string. Somewhere behind you, your daughter-in-law is calling the family in for the evening meal, and the light on the water has not changed at all, not once, in 60 years. The arrow you loosed 41 years ago on that riverbank never actually left your string. It stayed knocked, unspent, for the rest of your life. The one shot you never took, standing between you and a war that would have cost you men who wore your own feather. The one you loose now does. It leaves the string with a sound softer than you remember arrows making, arcs low over the practice post your grandson set up this morning, and buries itself in the wet mud with a thud that makes him laugh out loud. The same lump of Nile clay, more or less, that your own father nailed to a fence post 70 years before either of you were born to see it. You think, standing there with your bow arm still raised, about the last thing your father ever told you, kneeling behind a 9-year-old boy who believed every word of it. We keep Pharaoh's borders. That is what our people do now. He was not wrong. He was only early, reading the sentence one word before its true meaning had finished arriving. There is no Pharaoh's border left south of the second cataract, and has not been for most of your grandson's short life. What you have kept, in the end, was never really a border at all. It was this river, this feather, this exact motion of the arm, passed hand to hand, generation to generation, long after every king who once claimed to own it has been forgotten by the people who actually did the keeping. Your grandson pulls the arrow free from the mud and holds it up, waiting for you to tell him whether that was good. You tell him it was, and you mean it, in a way that has nothing left to do with pharaohs or borders or the 800-mile distance to a throne that no longer has anything left to ask of either of you. The land of the bow does not need anyone's permission to keep its own name.